So I am super excited to have my wonderful friend from college, even Heathcock, be my inaugural video over here. So I'm interviewing him today on his path on finding Salesforce, but more than anything, who was he before he even joined this ecosystem? So just to give you a brief background on him, super quick, we went to college together at DePaul University. He's based in Chicago, Illinois. Today, he's actually a technical architect at IBM. I followed him company after company. He's he's recommended me, so I'm very thankful for him for bringing me on. And he's got 7 certifications and counting, and he's been a part of really large projects before, such as Sephora, Stryker Medical Services, the New York Stock Exchange, just to name a few. So I'm gonna bring it over to him now, and we're gonna pick at this guy's expertise.
Thank you for the intro. I'm very happy to be here on the channel and kind of give a little insight into my story and my journey with Salesforce and kind of how I got into this. I guess, yeah, let me just start with that. So, like you mentioned, we went to undergrad together at DePaul University. Go Tigers. But I was a computer science major and I knew I wanted to do, something vaguely in tech coming out of school. And I wasn't really sure what that was. I thought, I wanted to go write code somewhere, but I didn't really know what that would look like, to be honest. And there were a couple people that I knew from a previous year who had graduated who had went on to work with this tool called Salesforce that, as a college student, I really didn't have any idea what it was. I know now, of course, that they're, a cloud-based CRM platform that's one of the most successful, popular technologies in the world that lots of businesses across the spectrum are using worldwide. And, I didn't have
Mhm.
any idea what it was really, or that it had like, a technical portion of it where you could, like code and write your own stuff. Like if it's a piece of software, I think, okay, you just buy it and then, okay, I have it and I can use it. There's not much else to it, but Salesforce as a platform is really kind of evolved since its inception and to its where it's this pretty robust place where you can build a lot of cool things off of their baseline application. And like I said, I had no idea about that, but I knew a couple folks who had gone directly from undergrad. They graduated with computer science degrees and went to go work in Salesforce technical consulting, which, like I said, I didn't really have any idea what it was, but they told me that they were, getting a fair salary right out of school, and that these consulting places were actually willing to like onboard you and kind of train you. So if they saw that you were a computer science student or had some kind of natural aptitude for tech and they thought you could do it, they were willing to kind of bring you on for a couple months, teach you the ropes of consulting and Salesforce, and give you kind of like a baseline to work off of. And that was a really appealing offer because, I know a lot of places will probably just throw you in there and expect you to, contribute, start building immediately right out if they're going to pay you a salary. And it was nice to kind of get a show of the land and kind of know what you were actually going to be doing before you just got thrown into projects and had to go work. So, um, but yeah,
That
that's
was at
kind of
Aperia, right? That was at Aperia?
it was. It
Right.
was. I know a lot of consulting companies have something similar. IBM has something like that where they're bringing
Mhm.
in newer
Internships.
associates and trying to kind of build them up into full-fledged consultants because it's still a very growing industry with lots of need for more people who are fluent in Salesforce and can work on the platform. So it makes sense why these companies are, coming in and using resources to get people up to speed and get people involved in their pipeline.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I actually had just said that in a previous video. So I guess it sounds like we got pretty lucky because in a way you recommended me into this program. Previous people recommended you into it. I will say that I know a lot of people today who are wondering, like they want that to have that hand to pull them in, or that recommendation. A lot of people are wondering if they can even get into Salesforce without a college degree. I'm not entirely sure, but I have heard of programs where you can basically like it's like a boot camp almost, where they get you admin certified, and then they kind of have not a guaranteed, but somehow they will help you find a job afterwards. So it sounds like
No, I
we
think
were
of
pretty
any.
lucky.
We were definitely were lucky, but I think of
Yeah,
any kind of platform to get into or career to get into. Really, Salesforce is great in the fact that you don't need like a lot of like formal training. It's all out there online for you to
for free.
digest
Yeah.
for free, and like you go and take obviously it's not as easy as you just like read a couple things. You got to really apply yourself
Right.
and get dedicated to learn the platform. But if you pass your admin exam, I mean, that opens a ton of doors at a lot of places that are going to need people, regardless of if you have like a background, like a traditional background in like, tech or
Yeah.
computer science. So I really like that aspect of the platform, how there is that kind of clear cut road to get into it and it's accessible. It's not like something you have to like, pay a college tuition for, which is
Right,
super
yeah.
appealing. So,
And so you went straight into the developer role. I know I talked about how I went more into like the business analyst role first.
mhm.
And that gave me more of a, how to get into the requirements. But you went into the developer role. You even did some release management, right?
Yeah, so basically, when I got accepted into this kind of like associate program at this consulting firm, Aperio, that I worked for right out of undergrad, they had a bunch of people freshly out of undergrad designed for, or they were brought in to fill a variety of roles. So there were, there's a lot more than just developers on these projects for stuff to get done. There's people who need to do the business analysis of like what you're actually building. How is this going to impact the client? How are the systems going to work with stuff they already have built? Who's going to write the
Mm-hmm.
user stories and gather the requirements? All that kind of stuff. Uh, so there were a bunch of people where on various different paths that I came in with, but like you said, I was on the technical path. I had a background in computer science, and I knew I wanted to write code and develop. And so I started out doing. It's funny because I went in thinking I was going to be writing a bunch of code, and I ended up doing the exact opposite of that for a good year and a half, for 2 years. I, like you said, I did release management, which is a concept about, instead of me actually like writing the code or building applications, I was essentially in charge of like moving them from place to place. So you have, a developer org where you're initially building stuff, and then a UAT org where you're going to have client access so they can come in and kind of like demo the products and sign off on them before you move them live to the production server where it's going out to
Right.
real end users. But as a release manager, you have to kind of keep track of everybody's work, what everybody's working on. Your life is, you live in a Git repo pretty much, and you're in charge of moving stuff from place to place and keeping everything cleaned up and organized. And then when
Yeah.
it is time to actually go live and deploy to prod, that's your Super Bowl basically, where you got to like step up and get everything there and ensure it's a smooth launch and notify the end users and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it was not my initial idea of what I was going to be doing. I wasn't writing any code, and part of me didn't like that because I like the creative aspect of being a developer a little bit, and the kind of sense
Right.
of accomplishment you get when you say, okay, I built something, I enjoyed working on this and I have something to be proud of, versus just moving it everywhere and kind of doing more administrative work for the project. I thought it
Yes.
wouldn't satisfy me, but it actually did. I really enjoyed it was still a very technical role, reading commits and clicking buttons all day. There was still a pretty big emphasis on like scripting for this deployment stuff. So we wrote out scripts that we associated with our Git repo to basically do deployments as we submitted commits or approved pull requests, which was always fun and got to kind of
Yeah.
scratch my itch as a developer. But I definitely thought release management too was a great way to kind of learn the platform, because if you come as you come in,
Hmm.
obviously you might get exposed to a certain cloud in Salesforce, like Service Cloud or Sales Cloud or Experience Cloud, but it's very hard unless you work on multiple projects over the course of many years to kind of get a full sense of the scope of Salesforce, like all the different areas that they offer and all the different things you can do with it. But as a release manager, since you're not actually building it, you're more just, moving stuff from place to place. You get a good view into all of the various things that go on in a project, like what needs to be created and developed when you're starting up a project and you need to build a new profile or you need to build out new custom fields. I think release management has played a large part in the success I've been able to have as a developer, kind of doing that before I got my hands on the more kind of granular aspects of Salesforce, like, writing new applications. I kind of had to learn how those applications fit into the entire ecosystem and what goes actually into making them, like brick by brick. So it's not very sexy, I won't lie, to be doing release management. A lot of people are very against it and they don't enjoy that aspect of the job. But I would recommend, if you get an opportunity as somebody who's starting out and new to Salesforce to work in DevOps, it's very good for kind of building up your core knowledge of Salesforce, and it'll give you a lot of ability to later on go into various different directions based on what you want to do. So,
Yeah. Actually, I have a question following up that. I don't know if you had another thing to add, but because I'm doing a little bit of release management right now, and you were talking about how okay, it's not not writing code, but it's very technical regardless. I
mhm,
find it like it's satisfying to know, for example, there is still a little bit of a strategic planning behind that. Like,
mhm.
okay, I'm gonna do this before this, and I'm gonna do this together with this type of thing. That is sort of like a computer science mindset to it
Yeah,
that I enjoy as well.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot easier in my experience too with the rise of tools like Capado, and also
Mm, for
SFDX has
sure.
gotten a lot more easy to use. It's not just all on the command line. There's a pretty good like graphical interface for VS Code, which has made release management a lot easier when I still have to do it because it never does leave you as you go. It's not like you just. I'm not
You
doing it
stop
full time anymore, but you always have to move your code eventually as a tech
for
lead.
sure.
So it's definitely something that is I still use on a day to day basis.
I bet. I bet. And so, I mean, tell me now, going from tech lead and having that release management, do you think that helped you at all with the technical architect role?
Yeah, I guess to kind of just follow up on, I did release management for about 1 to 2 years, my first 2 years in the ecosystem, and then switched over to a more traditional Salesforce developer role. So I was writing Apex code, doing Lightning components for the front end, still doing config based stuff, and some platform development when I needed to, like flows, workflows, process builder, that kind of thing. I started doing that for about a year, and I got to the point where I was pretty comfortable doing all of that. I was comfortable, I knew how to write code and build applications successfully. And I think that background in release management and kind of knowing, how a project's supposed to run, when things need to go to UAT, when they go to prod, how we're supposed to develop efficiently.
Yeah.
That kind of helped with the technical background that I had. I was able to step into like a tech lead role pretty quickly after becoming a developer, where not only was I still working on my own code for the application, but I was tech reviewing, like doing code reviews for the other developers. And I was in charge of deploying everything from one environment to the next. So kind of like my old release management job, but I was in charge of everybody's code once they had, you know, written it, submitted it to Git, and we had signed off on it. It was ready to go. I
Mm,
was in charge of moving it. And pretty quickly after, people started coming to me for, okay, we're having these new enhancements on a project, or we want to move in this direction. We're not going to bring in a technical architect like they do sometimes on projects when there's a big kind of like new wave of work or some big enhancement that the client wants. They asked, would you be comfortable architecting it and kind of writing out the requirements, understanding at a high level what we need to do to accomplish like this integration or this new piece of the application that they want to build out. And I took pretty well to that as well. Like I was able to, like I said, use my knowledge as a developer, leverage other resources, other acting technical architects at IBM as well, to kind of learn the ropes on that and learn how to kind of architect things out at a very high level before you actually go in and build them. Understand what needs to work, what are the key path kind of functionalities that you need to square away for this thing to work. And I've been doing technical architecting for I think about 6 months now, so that's been my new role, and it's been fun. I'm enjoying more and more responsibility on a project and just more challenge, which I think this role gives me. So it's been fun.
yeah, you get to be the key decision maker in certain aspects for sure. That must be fun.
Yeah, the clients say is pretty much what goes. But I'm the one who's going to
Right.
be in charge of building it.
Yeah. What's your current project, by the way?
I've been working with Sephora, who are
Right.
a makeup and beauty company based out of San Francisco
I'm
for
sure I'm sure a lot of people know what Sephora is,
yeah.
myself included.
I've been working with
That's
them
awesome.
for about a year and a half. I have a pretty good relationship with their team and IBM team, so more to come there. I'm still working there, and hopefully they continue to be a long-term client of theirs. We've been building out a lot of cool stuff in their Salesforce instance for the past year and a half, and it's been a very fun client to work with.
That's super sweet. And so, okay, let me ask, like I said, let me ask the silly questions for
Yeah, go ahead.
anybody who doesn't know. So I guess you're working for Sephora. How did you get assigned to this project? How do you end up there?
Well, I work for IBM, and IBM has a consulting wing. They have many consulting wings because they have their
Hmm.
hands in a lot of different technologies. But they have a team dedicated to Salesforce consulting of people who are Salesforce certified and have experience working in the Salesforce ecosystem. And basically, they'll come to IBM and say, "We want to work with you guys and your Salesforce team to build out this new application in Salesforce." And that's what they did a year and a half ago. They contacted IBM to build out Salesforce from the ground up. They had not been in Salesforce, but they wanted to migrate some of their customer data in there and build out a front facing application that utilized that on the back end. And so IBM saw the people they had available in their consulting wing, picked me as one of the developers on there, and I've been there ever since. And I've been very blessed to be part of that project. So,
That's awesome. I mean, I know for a fact
uh,
that, in order for you to be assigned to large projects like this, you have to have certain skills and obviously be the skill that they're looking for. In your opinion, what are some of the most popular, I guess, like hot skills at the moment in the market for anybody to learn, whether they're looking to be hired or looking to get assigned to a project?
yeah, I mean, I definitely think that everybody should at least know the basics of Lightning Web Components. I think that's the future of the platform and where a lot of the coolest things you can do with
Yeah.
Salesforce are built out of. So I definitely think that that's a very good area to skill yourself up in to find work if you're a consultant. I also think, equally it's not as new, but being able to kind of do anything you want in Apex is also a very marketable skill just because um it's very old at this point. But it is so key to a lot of Salesforce that just having somebody on a project who, anything you need in Apex they can just whip up pretty quickly is a definite uh, it's very useful. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna deviate here for a second because I saw a video recently where somebody clarified to me, because I didn't know this, that Apex is a proprietary language of Salesforce, meaning nobody else
yes,
can use it.
it's not bad. It's just pretty old at this point. I mean, it
It
was
is
written
very
with the
old.
inception of Salesforce, which was now about to be 15 or 16 years ago. So,
That's insane.
yeah, it doesn't have some of the quality of life stuff more modern languages have, but it's a pretty simple object-oriented language, very similar to Java or something like that. I'd say if you're working in like C++ or something like that, you should be fine coming over. Or if you're a JavaScript developer or something, Apex is going to seem pretty simple and by comparison. So it's not a very
Certainly.
scary language to jump into if you're an experienced programmer, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, I think the biggest gotcha with Salesforce in general is more of the governor
Yeah, yeah, no, that is fair.
limits, governor anything within Salesforce, and like being aware of that, I guess is very different for somebody who doesn't have these boundaries, right? Like they
Yeah,
just code freely.
yeah, to kind of just provide a little context into what Natalia's talking about, because Salesforce is a multi-tenanted kind of cloud. There's a limited amount of like processing power that can go on between all clients across all of Salesforce, and to kind of make sure that there's equity in that, and that one tenant isn't using up like 30% of the processing power, and that kind of like bottlenecks the other places. They give you pretty strict limits on programmatic things you can do on the back end
Mhm.
as far as like the size or the volume of data or transactions that you're running. So you always have to be creative and be aware of the limits that Salesforce places on that if you want your applications to work successfully.
I like that word, creative. Yeah,
Yeah, you
certainly.
do have to get
Certainly what
creative.
we thought about. We do have to get creative. That's kind of what makes, I guess, the our job slightly exciting. So let's talk about the exciting part of our job, getting to work with our cats and dogs from home. How is remote life? How does it treat you?
Ah, I definitely enjoy it, but I know it's not for everybody, as I have an appearance from the cat. That is one of the benefits. As somebody who has a dog and a cat, getting to spend more time with them is definitely a plus. But I was even a remote worker before the pandemic. I know a lot of folks that got their first taste of remote work during the pandemic. Either they really enjoy it and they wish they could, go back to that full time, or they absolutely hated it and they're like, I need to be in an office. I need to see other people. Like, this doesn't feel right.
Mm,
But I definitely, I've got my routine down at this point, having worked remote for pretty much a year before the pandemic, so a while now.
yeah,
I have ways to like. I feel like I still get a bit of a social aspect with it, just because I'm always on camera talking on Zoom with my team or my clients or something like that. And then I also have ways during the day to kind of like break up my day a little bit, so I'm not just like sitting in my like living room all day and kind of like feeling trapped. Like I'm able to like take my dog outside and go on walks when I have breaks during the day. And I also like the flexibility that working from home kind of gives me over my schedule and my work hours, because if I'm developing, and as long as I, meet the deadline by, or meet the deadline for whatever I'm working on by the deadline, I don't think anybody really minds if I'm working at, like 7 o'clock at night, or like, 6 in the
yeah,
morning, or any kind of time I want to work. So it's very nice to just be able to log on, pop up my laptop, turn on my computer, and just be able to kind of like work at my own pace versus, I've worked jobs where you're there from 9 to 5, and like that's, there's no
yeah,
say in any of that. So
yeah, yeah. I personally think it kills productivity, if anything. I personally am not like 100% productive from 9 to 5. Like I
mhm.
need, like you said, your break. I'm a lot more productive right after I go work out for some reason. Those last 2 hours before, like or after I work out is are the best. So yeah, I agree. I agree. And I know you do other stuff yourself outside of work.
Oh, of
So
course. I'm a big volleyball player. I play on the beach. I play indoor, and I play on the grass when it's summertime and it's nice out. But I'm a big volleyball player. I like spending time with my dog and my cat, my friends. Big football fan. I'm a big Bears fan. Unfortunately, the Bears kind of suck this year, but
oh.
so fun watching them every Sunday. But yeah,
So that's all I've got for today, Evan. I'm so thankful for you. Thank you for hopping up with us. You guys will definitely have a second interview. Appreciate you, bud. If any of my viewers want to get in contact with you, what's a good place for them to hit you up?
it's a good question. I guess they can hit me up on Twitter at eHeathcock. Just tweet at me and I'll try to answer if you have a question.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. So I'll share that with them and your LinkedIn potentially. Awesome.
Hmm. That's
All
it.
right. Have a great day.
Thanks.